Under the Constitution, you should be gold or silver because that's still the law of the land. But I'm for assets, hard assets, rather than, the opposition is easier to state and understand. I'm against this silly notion that you should trust the politician to print the money when he needs it and think the money is going to maintain its value. That's the ridiculous notion. Instead, I do get a lot of fun made of me. Oh, yeah, he's the guy who wants to go back to the gold standard. I don't want to go back to the gold standard. There's a better gold standard.
It's hard value.
You know, but the value, there were some shortcomings of the 19th century gold standard. But if you look at 125 years of history, the price levels, you know, in time of war, when they inflated, went up, but price levels stayed like this. Since 1971, since we have separated our dollar from gold, prices have done this, and the size of government has done this, and our liberties have done this. So that's why money is very, very important.
Governments can spend money and not be responsible. They can tax to a degree, they can borrow to a degree, but then they can print the money when they need it. And common sense tells almost anybody that looks at this that, you know, you just can't get away with that. This causes problems. Because if we double the money supply, which we do in not too many years, why wouldn't that money have half the value? Right. So it's the money that goes down in value which causes the inflation, the higher prices to rise, which is so harmful to the middle class and the poor because they suffer rising prices more so than if you're on Wall Street, where you get to use the newly created money to promote deals, you know, leverage buyouts and these things. They make billions of dollars. Or if you get to use the money first, like the government or the military-industrial complex or the health industry now, which is a government industry, then all of a sudden that they have their advantages, but the middle class and the poor literally can get wiped out through a monetary process. Monetary policy is very, very important, and other people don't want to talk about it either because they like the way it works and they can finance their pet project, or they just don't understand it. But the American people, I find, are understanding this better than a lot of people here in Washington.
There's a dollar crisis out there, and people's money is being stolen. People who have saved, they're being robbed. I mean, if you have a devaluation of the dollar at 10%, people have been robbed of 10%.
Today, we still have a lot of prosperity, but we have a lot of debt, and it's based on debt. It's the fact that this country can't even operate. Congress could be brought to its knees, which means the dollar and the country could be brought to its knees if we couldn't depend on the Japanese and the Chinese loaning us money at a good rate. So as long as they're doing that, we're going to have this pseudo-prosperity, but it will come to an end. As a matter of fact, we're in the early stages of seeing that happen because we see the dollar weakening dramatically right now. I mean, we're hitting 30-year lows with the pound and historic lows for the euro, and they're not very good currencies. So the only true test is what will your dollar buy. And quite frankly, if you're on the margin, if you're low income or poor, your inflation tax, your lower standard of living is much more serious than those in the middle class, high income people, because inflation is no big deal. But if you care about the middle class and you care about the problems you ask about, you have to talk about sound money. You have to talk about making sure governments can't pretend that they can deliver you all these wonderful things if they don't have enough money. They can't tax us anymore because there may be a tax revolt. They can't borrow anymore. Maybe the Chinese won't do it. They just print the money. I mean, it's the most foolish economic issue I've ever heard of, and nobody asks any questions about it. And then they say, oh yes, the price of medicine is going up. It must be those terrible doctors. It must be the hospitals. They're the ones who are at fault. But what happens in the marketplace where there's electronic technology? Prices go down. And the modern age should have driven the price of medicine down. Telemedicine and these things are very helpful and all, but it's one area where prices don't go down, they go up. What about education? The government's involved in education. Prices go up. That's the result of the inflating of the money supply. The supply goes up, the value goes down, it has to go somewhere, it has to hurt somebody. The tragedy of this is it hurts poor people, and it wipes out eventually the middle class, and that's why you've had these turmoils in many nations, and we're not immune from it. Everybody will be affected if you have runaway inflation. Just think of what happened in Germany, with runaway inflation. And people should be much more concerned about the integrity of the money. And to me, it's an economic issue, it's a moral issue, but it's also the reason government can grow in a sneaky way.
And what should the tenor of U.S. relationships be in the international community?
Well, we should permit it trade as fast as possible and evenly as possible. I want low tariffs. Tariffs are taxes, and it doesn't tax the wealthy. It taxes the poor person who would like to buy cheap products.
So why were you opposed to NAFTA? Why was the hand so high?
Because
NAFTA?
because it's government management of trade for this special interest. It's not really free trade. There are more requests from our government to NAFTA to raise tariffs. You know, we want protectionism. If you're a big corporation, you might get some protection from that, where free trade is different. In Washington, you have managed international trade under the UN NAFTA type banner, WTO, which is just bigger government, and I don't like that. Or you have the protectionist that says that no, we shouldn't trade, high tariffs, and punish the consumer by making them pay higher prices for their products.
So I have to ask, I've asked other people, other candidates who've come. So for a company like Google going and doing business in China, you think it was a good thing for us to begin operations?
That's right. That's your right under the Constitution, and it's your right in a free society. And it shouldn't even be. Pardon me?
Even if there are restrictions that make people uncomfortable in terms of access.
That's your business. That's your business. But the market, if some group in this country frowns upon it, they have the right to try to punish Google in the market. But they don't have the right to come to me to punish Google and say you can't do it. So your contract is your business, and some contracts aren't as good as others. But what I want to do is protect the right of freedom of contract, which is one of the elements of a free society that's crucial. Its free contract is similar to the free association of two individuals in a social sense, in a sexual sense, in a religious sense. You don't want to interfere. So in the economic sense, and I apply the same rule to economic voluntarism, that you can come together with any voluntary contract, and the government has a responsibility if one side violates it and there's an argument. I'm still at the point where I don't think you go and shoot each other. I'd still use the courts to settle these disputes. Walter Williams, a very astute free market economist, has studied this extensively. And he has found that prior to minimum wage laws, there was no discrepancy like this. So he put a lot of blame on the minimum wage law. Once government gets interfering, this takes away opportunities. And I believe there is a lot of truth to this because it eliminates an opportunity and a chance for a marginal worker. So once again, though, the economy is supported only when you have a sound economy perpetuated by a government with sound policies. You have to have sound money. You have to have minimum taxes. You have to have, wise foreign policy. But I have a bill in that might help a lot of people, black or white or whomever. I have a bill in that would immediately help these people who are trying to get a start, that they would never have to pay any taxes or payroll taxes if they just happen to be a waiter or waitress, to give them a chance to get ahead and get a good job.
Thank you, sir. Senator Brownback.